Hello, everybody. This is Doug Heinz, and welcome to our PathWrangler video podcast. And this is our inaugural podcast. The budget for our production was blown in the back alley losing a dice last week, so bear with this minimalist approach as we get better stuff and make better video and have budgets to fly people out or at least drive them somewhere or something like that. But anyway, the purpose is we're going to be kind of doing conversations with people we think are doing incredible things of the adventurous nature. Nothing here is scripted. All we do is just kind of casually get into real stories that people have to tell. So, in the future, we're going to be doing some video podcasts like that. But also, too, like we'll have occasionally some podcasts that are going to be showing like how PathWrangler clients use our product for their adventures, but that will not be today. So anyway, I want to introduce today our first podcast and our first guest. And I want to introduce a good friend of mine, and this is Ian Wood. Hey, Ian. Welcome
Hi.
to our show.
How are you?
I've always wanted to say that. Welcome to our show.
Well, as you were talking about your video budget, something fell off my wall behind me. So it was like literally my set is falling apart as we get started here.
As you can tell, the quality of
It's beautiful.
this is the Dirtbag podcast. This is it.
How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm gonna introduce Ian. So Ian and I have known each other, quite a while, but we have a unique story in the way we met each other. We actually met each other through just fellow bloggers. We never met in person, and that'll lead to us into the story of how we know each other. But he wrote for a blog. Ian, what was the how long did you have your blog Astonished Head for? What was the?
I started Astonished Head in February of 2002 and pulled the plug on it sometime in mid 2007, I think. Not long after I ended up in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, moving out there. That's right. Yeah, so we knew each other through that, and I had a blog at the time, and so Ian has actually a pretty incredible story here, which we're going to kind of get into, which is that he got inspired to do this pretty ambitious trip. So actually, Ian, before we get into the why on it, what was the genesis of your trip here? Like what was the purpose of it? What were you trying to do when you set out to do this thing? And what was the cliff notes here?
Well, I was thinking about this because I knew this story was going to come up, and I've been going through the materials that I collected while I was on the road. And it turns out I have 75,000 words that I wrote while I was on the trip and afterwards. And I went through and I pulled out my declared intention. I mean, for folks who don't know, which I assume is everybody, basically I took off across the country on a recumbent tricycle with a trailer, broke up with a girlfriend, sold my house, put my stuff in storage, lent my cat to a friend of mine in Harlem, and just took off. No rent, no mortgage, and I was out on the road for 4 months. Effectively homeless, because I didn't, I knew I was going to somehow end up probably crashing at mom's house for a couple of weeks at the end of it, and that's a whole other story. But so I went back and found out what I thought my intention was when I first published it on the website, which was on December 19th of 2005. And I wanted to read that because there's like, I have what I thought I was going to do. And then I have the last entry where I talked about it, like what actually happened at the end of it.
Yeah.
So my declaration was simply this. I said, I'm at a point in my life where I'm more than a little fed up with my own neuroses, my own continual sense of not fitting in, square peg, round hole, and so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. That's our 50 minutes. Despite Buckaroo Banzai Sade's observation, wherever you go, there you are, it is my opinion that becoming a technological pedal-powered vagrant will yield the kind of self-knowledge that will allow me to relate to the world with a bit more grace and a lot less nonsense. So and then I followed that up with something about discovering America, which was I kind of knew was bullshit at the time. I just wanted to go and do a thing that was entirely new to knock myself out of what I saw as my rut. So I went and did that for 4 months. And this is a little depressing, because then on July 20th, 2007, after 4 months and all the other stuff that had happened, and I crash landed in Santa Barbara, and, you know, plans changed, things didn't work out as they were intended. The last thing I wrote was, so after a year on this day, I can look back and see more of the same. In a lot of ways, I've advanced not a whit in 365 days. In a lot of other ways, I've advanced quite a bit. When comparing the wits and the bits on this day, it's the wits that are weightier, and I'm still sick of it. Enough, apparently, was not enough. On this day a year ago, I was on a dune somewhere between Astoria and Cannon Beach in Oregon. 2 months spent in the company of that absolving ocean wasn't sufficient, and I still don't know what will be. So, I mean, just looking at those two bookends, in a certain sense, the trip was like an abject failure.
Well, actually, let's before we get into that, because I think that's going to be an interesting part of the story when we get to that part of the timeline. But you know, I think that your story of like what prompted you to get there is actually pretty. It's pretty harrowing. You know, let's talk about, you know, you're riding your bike September 11th, 2001 down to Lower Manhattan, and this was a profound effect.
I hadn't even drawn it that far back, actually.
Yeah.
I suppose it did really start that far back. I was going through and looking at posts that I had tagged specifically about the trip. But yeah, I mean, I was living in New York and Queens in 2001, and I worked downtown, and I was there 3 blocks away and there when the towers fell on September 11th. And that's why I left New York and got the house with my girlfriend, because I had gone back to school, and I realized that I could either sort of finish school or look for a house and get the fuck out of the city, which was, you know, had blown up around me. It made me nervous, understandably.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up in the house with my girlfriend at the time. And that was sort of the launching point for this, because when that relationship sort of amicably ended, I mean, it wasn't like a horrendously stressful breakup or anything, but it was over, and I was in a place where I didn't have a mortgage to pay or rent to pay, and there was this period of no obligation and a little bit of money from the house sale. So it is very much the case that if I hadn't been in New York, if I hadn't been there that day, if September 11th hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't have ended up, you know, lost in Kentucky, so to speak, at some point.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's so if I'm following here, I mean, it's like, so, you know, this event happened that altered your trajectory at one point, right? And you ended up, you know, it's sitting in the suburbs, and then, you know, kind of going, what's the point of this whole thing? You know, obviously the day in itself brings its own mortality and safety and things like that with it too. But, you know, you just kind of found yourself a little bit in this place where you're unsettled and you don't know why, and you just got to do some shit to get fixed, right? Like, or not fixed, but just something's got to break loose, right?
Yeah, something. I did the most different thing I could think of doing, because normally the expectation is when you sell a house and you end a relationship, you go get another job and you get another place to live, and maybe you get another relationship, and you just sort of do it again, but better.
Yeah.
And I decided not to do that. I decided to do something completely different, which was be homeless and jobless and not talk to anybody for days at a time, and
that's
strangers
right.
in places I'd never been to, you know?
Yeah. And so, okay, actually on some of the technical natures, so explain to everybody, you know, what the heck is this recumbent bike? I mean, where did you get it, and why a recumbent tricycle?
Well, a recumbent is, you know, it's the opposite of the diamond frame. It's the ones that people lie down on rather than pedaling with a seat up their ass. And the main reason that I got the main reason that I got, when I originally thought about doing this, I had acquired an upright touring bike, a Bruce Gordon, made by Bruce Gordon in Petaluma, who's like this cantankerous old frame welding genius. It's a brilliant bike, but I just couldn't make friends with it for the aforementioned seat up the ass reasons. And also, I just wasn't in good enough shape, and I just couldn't see myself hauling the bike with gear across the damn country. And the beauty of a trike is there's a tadpole trike. It's got 2 wheels in front and 1 wheel in the back and a mesh seat. It's essentially like pedaling a lawn chair. And it has gearing on it. It has a 9-speed drivetrain plus a 3-speed internal hub, which gives it 81 effective gears, sort of like at the gearbox of a semi truck, which means that I can go up a hill at half a mile an hour if I need to, and I won't fall over and die. So it was sort of the only way I was going to be able to do this, because it's very stable and it was just easier for me. And I towed a trailer behind it, which had way too much gear because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But this was in 2006. This was before GoPro cameras and ubiquitous Wi-Fi and all these other things. So I had solar panels, a battery pack that I built for myself, a little Dell laptop, which is still going strong. I call it the Jesus Top. A cell phone amplifier so that I was able to be in places. I was able to get internet and cell signals in 0-bar places at a time. This is like, it's a lot easier to do this now. Back then, it was really impressive. I'm a little jealous of all the people who get to take off now and just like buy stuff off the shelf to do all this stuff. But I was able to be connected and update my website.
About that on that note, I mean, actually, that's one of the things that I think, is a very compelling part of your story, and it's almost like a glossed over, nowadays. Is that, like if you think about the level of, or how much it took to not only do a trip like this, but you wanted to broadcast it real time as much as you could given the day. And you did not let the fact that you could not walk into, the Best Buy or go on to Amazon, right, and click buy, and this thing shows up, 2 weeks later. You built shit, put it together, figured it out. And by the way, this is a part of the trip that never broke down, right? Like this is the stuff that all worked always.
Well, almost. See, almost. I built my own they have you can like go into REI now and buy this thing from Goal Zero, which is like a solar charger battery thing, which is essentially a production model of what I built from scratch. And frankly, I'm not sure how they pulled it off, and I'm not sure how well it works, but that's another discussion. But the thing is, I built this thing, and I hauled these batteries around, which were probably close to 10 pounds of batteries. And this is sort of like my great shame of inefficiency. I hauled those fucking things across the entire damn country, and I could never get them to work right. They were supposed to be able to run my laptop and everything.
Yeah,
I could get them to power the amplifier for the cell phone and the little wireless modem that I had, but I could never get the laptop to boot up. And if I was less out of my mind, I would have just broken it up and mailed that. But I hauled them up and down mountains, and man. So partly it's because I finished building the box. I called it the black box. Literally days before I left. I had no time to like take it out on the road, make sure. So like I would be in RV parks in Oregon looking around for someone who had like a multimeter. Like this was like a two months into the trip. I'm still like trying to fix this shit, So it mostly worked. No, I know. Some of it worked brilliantly.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, I think that's a really cool, significant part of the story. So now getting on the timeline of the story. Okay, so you do all this stuff. You go and you lock everything away. Your cat's taken care of. Your relationships are properly severed, and you go. All right, you started. We're in Virginia, right?
Charlottesville, Virginia, on the coast of the Atlantic.
Okay.
Yeah. And
did someone drop you off there? Is that right? Or
the thing, like I said, mentioned earlier, the breakup was amicable, and it was my now ex-girlfriend and her friend drove me down to Virginia because my ex had family in the DC area. So like, you know, she literally saw me pedal away, you know, and like later I heard like sort of ran around the corner to try to see me go and stuff, which I'm glad I didn't see because that would have just broken my fucking heart.
Oh man, yeah, because you didn't have a rearview mirror, right? You wanted to just.
I did have a rearview mirror, and I saw a little bit of it, but apparently she kept going after I turned around the corner and stuff. and the thing is, it was one of those breakups where like you know it's for the best, but you don't really wanna. You know?
Yeah, of course.
And
yeah, of course.
So literally there was this moment, there's this big column that's like the landmark for the end of the trail. I guess I should emphasize that the route I was on is called the Transamerica Trail. It's a maintained route by the Adventure Cycling Association. It starts in Charlottesville, Virginia, and goes all the way to Astoria, Oregon. So I was at the beginning part. There's this big column monument for some Revolutionary War stuff. And this is like everything, it's taken months to get this together. The house still hasn't closed, so I'm leaving. I'm leaving on my trip before the money's in my bank account. My ex is there. You know, I miss my cat, you know, already, and I pedal away on a road I've never been to before, and I don't know. I think everyone should do that at least once in their life. You know?
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's a really a good point here. And you know, we've been chatting a while here, and we barely even got out of Virginia. But you know, I think that the starting point parts is a lot of these stories is really interesting because you always can come up with a million excuses to not go do shit. Right? You don't feel well. You know, you don't have the resources. You don't have a cell phone that works. No bar. You know, all this stuff that. You know, we're talking about here, and you had some significant things. I mean, you had like, man, I sold my house, and I don't know if it's closed yet, and you know, you had some stuff that you could have easily just been like, you know what, I'll do it next year, or I'll wait a month. Well, you couldn't actually. That's a part of the story. You really couldn't wait a month or anything. You had to go. That's right.
Oh, hang on. You dropped out there for the last little bit.
Yeah, sorry. The question was you could not wait another, like, I mean, the schedule of the trip was with weather and the way that things work. You had to leave, right?
Yeah, I was supposed to leave in April, and I didn't end up leaving until towards the end of May.
Wow. Okay.
And there was going to be what I was most worried about was not so much like the Rockies, was heat in places like Missouri. Which actually figured into what happened later. But yeah, I left late. I left late. And when I left, I had nowhere to go but like forward, you know? Yeah.
So so you're taking off now. What was the first week like on the road? Your, first day, first week. Am I oh yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I pause and then it catches up. I still remember vividly my first night in a campground, like outside of Charlotte. I had probably done some like stupidly insignificant amount of miles because I was not physically prepared for what I was trying to do in any way, shape, or form. But I was in this campground, and there were two guys a few tents down who were finishing up what I was trying to start. They had come from Oregon like already, which was mind-blowing. But they gave me a beer and a magic garlic clove. Because apparently, stuff becomes significant on the road in a way that it doesn't in normal life. But they were like the first people I met on the road, and I was just like, I was shell shocked. I was like, who are these weird people who are giving me beer and garlic cloves? You know, what's
Yeah,
is that going to happen to me?
I mean, right? Yeah, like
But
you're going to impart some wisdom on someone else when you get to the very end of your trip. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have get like the 1,000-yard stare at the end, you know.
I know. Right? Yeah. Except for these guys have probably much more, you know, saddle crotch rot than you would because you get to sit.
They were on uprights.
Yep. Yeah, that's tight. So, all right. So now you got the first weekend. How long did it take you to get out of Virginia and into Kentucky? Now this is where it starts getting a little nasty, right?
This is where it gets nasty because I was so out of shape. I was supposed to be doing 50 miles a day, and I think maybe the first day I did 20, and then I might have pushed 30 the first week, and then the second or third week I just collapsed. Just from stress and everything. And I stayed in a motel in, I think, Charlottesville, Virginia, the Lamplighter. I still remember it. Horrible, like, faux Tudor wood on the walls inside. It was horrendous. Yeah. But I stayed there just like crashed out for like 6 days. And this is supposed to be like a 90-day trip. So already like the plans are already like almost completely off the rails. Like those 6 days were supposed to be like 300 miles. And I was in a motel in Virginia because I couldn't leave, you know?
Yeah. So, and then like, terrain wise, I mean, it gets pretty, you're in the hills pretty early, right?
I'm in what?
You're hitting the hills. There's some pretty serious terrain.
The Blue Ridge Parkway was the first thing that I hit in Virginia. Which I kind of didn't mind because it's such a gorgeous ride. But that was, that was after Charlottesville. That was after I had sort of collapsed.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really until Kentucky, then, sort of Kentucky knob country, basically, where you started to get these hills that kind of go like this. It's like they're not long, but they're really steep and brutal, and it's starting to get really hot.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Kentucky, man. Well, first off, there was a couple of positives. If I remember right from the story, you had somebody that was dropping you kind of like some encouraging things here and there. It was anonymous, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, what happened? Yeah, what happened was just outside of near Berea, Kentucky, which is sort of mid-state. I mentioned earlier the internally geared hub that I have on the back, which gives me 3 different gear ratios. And basically I broke it because because I was way outside the manufacturer's spec and got told by both the dealer and the manufacturer that I could do what I was doing, and they were like horribly wrong. And I'm like on top of one of those little hills in Kentucky, like near a graveyard, with some of them had like wooden grave markers in it, and my back wheel just starts spinning. And I managed to fix it and get down the hill, and then it does it again, and I realize that the hub is trashed. I'm basically dead by the side of the road, like a state and a half into what's supposed to be an 11-state trip.
Yeah.
And this black beat up black Ford Bronco pulls up, passes by me, and then pulls over, and this guy leans out and he says, "You okay?" And I'm just like, "No, not really, not at all, actually." And this turned out to be Bernie.
That's the time where you have
Bernie
no capacity for bullshit, right?
Yeah. Well, no, exactly. I just, and because he was a stranger, if I had known him better, I would have just said, "I am fucked, Bernie." And I was. So he puts all my stuff in the back of his Bronco, and I tell him what I'm doing and what the problem is. And he first of all, he drives me. He lives near the town where we were near Berea. I can't remember his precise town, but he drives me into Berea and drops me off at a motel. Then takes me to a bike shop where I take my wheel, which they can't fix because they've never seen this thing before. This hub is over July 4th weekend.
Bring a UFO in, they're like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, they're like, "Yeah, we don't." Oh, and I wasn't expecting it to break, so I don't know. I don't know what's in that thing. I can't fix it either.
Yeah.
So I end up, and it takes me to dinner, and I end up making phone calls, sending email, and making phone calls. Greenspeed, the manufacturer of my trike, is based in Australia. So through roundabout ways, I end up getting in touch with them in Australia and the Chicago distributor, who agreed to warranty replace the wheel, like free of charge. Yeah. And this is where the money that I spent on the trike, the total trike purchase was just shy of $6,000. That's where some of that money went. You can eventually get somebody on a phone who will build you a wheel and send it to you over July 4th weekend free of charge. So
that's amazing.
Greenspeed. Wow. I still love them. But then Bernie, I got the new wheel, had to stay over the weekend because it was July 4th and there wasn't delivery on Monday. But I got the new wheel and put it together. And then Bernie takes me out for breakfast. I hang out at his house for a little while. And he refuses like any remuneration, any compensation, in the way that suddenly makes me realize that I'm being rude. Not like, yeah, it didn't even occur to me. It didn't even occur to him that there would be money involved, but coming from New York, I'm like, oh, let me give you, no, doesn't work that way. And he saved my ass, man. Just, picked me up on the side of the road and saved my ass. Got me back on the road.
That's awesome. So you're, and this is kind of where the story starts to take a little bit of a turn, right? I mean, you had this great guy that you met who, just did this amazing thing, and then, as you're heading down the road, some of the dark clouds start coming up, right?
There was one after I was on the road, I had there was sort of a moderate mountain crossing. And I'm barreling down the highway. Parts of Kentucky highways suck for riding. They got rumble strips on them. So I'm like, my trike is getting shaken apart as I'm barreling down the highway and everything. And at one point I get to the bottom and I stop and I look back and I realize that my pannier, my backpack pannier, the top pocket is open. My wallet is gone.
Oh.
And the last time I had it was back up at the top of the mountain I just barreled down at an ice cream shop. And at that point, I'd been in dark headspace for quite a while. Bernie helped, but then I had to keep doing what I was doing, and it was starting to get really hot. And I knew Missouri was ahead of me. Missouri's the state in all the guides where, like, if anywhere on the tour, if people get like bottles thrown at them from passing cars, it's in Missouri. So I'd already had the experience of being in sort of backwoods Kentucky on this really weird looking trike thing, has a fairing on the front, looks like a spacecraft, Yeah. People driving by in pickups sort of looking at me as I'm laboring up the hills. And Missouri was going to be hot. I knew it. And at that moment, like by the side of the road, when my wallet was gone and I knew I might have left it at the trike, I might have left it at the ice cream shop, or it fell out on the road somewhere. I was so panicked that another pickup truck was going through the intersection, and I flagged them down and told them what had happened, and said, could you guys run up to the ice cream shop at the top of the mountain and see if it's there? Not knowing if they were going to be the kind of guys who would find it and leave with it, Yeah. And I turned around and started pedaling slowly back up the hill on the wrong side of the highway to look for my wallet. And the pickup people come back, drive past and say they didn't find anything. And about 200 yards past them, I find it on the side of the road. And it was like a come to Jesus moment. I literally fell to my knees because it was I had been such a lousy place right then, looking at sort of the end of everything. But sort of with that realization was like, it's like, dude, you're not having a good time here. It was probably like 5 weeks in at this point, and I was still posting on the website and people were concerned and whatnot. And when I got to, was it Hazard? it was a town south of Louisville. I can't remember the name of it. There's whiskey there. It's right in the middle of whiskey. It's right in the middle of whiskey country.
Okay.
The plan was I was going to go all the way across the country, hit Astoria, Oregon, and then head down the West Coast. The total was going to be like 5,000 miles. And I was like 5 weeks into it, had made a pitiful mileage. And I was just like, you're going to have to make some adjustments here. What are you going to do? Are you going to quit entirely, or what are you going to do? And there was another friend that I'd met online who was in St. Louis. Not St. Louis, Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And this guy drove like 45 minutes from Louisville to hang out with me and take me to dinner and talk about what I was going to do. And he's the guy who said, you can change your mind, dude. Yeah. It's like because like I'm looking at you, man. It's like you're miserable. You're practically he's like, you're practically twitching here at the table, do what makes you happy. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I want to see the ocean. Yeah. So within 2 days, he drove me to the Louisville airport, and I rented a minivan, threw all of my gear in the minivan, and drove across the country in 3 days to Astoria, Oregon.
Yeah, actually, so that's an interesting point, because and again, like, that's the thing about this story that I actually like the most. I know it's going to sound weird, but too many times nowadays when we're reading really interesting adventure stories that get published in big magazines and things like that, it's always these like remarkable feats by these people that do. And I mean, look, that stuff is cool. I'm not at all like saying that that's some whitewash bullshit, but I think that there's bar set that shows, and I mean, as we kind of get on in this story, the point is the story was like, and just because you didn't set out to do your original thing, you set a goal. You didn't make it for whatever reasons, but there's much more to the story. There's another secondary piece of this that we'll talk about here. But I think that it's actually like, this is the part that it really deserves here, because and this is why you're number one on the podcast. I mean, it's like we got a lot of connections to all these people that are doing crazy shit all the time. And, I want to talk to you because I think this is a real story,
don't get me wrong. This was a 4 month, 116 days. It was just shy of 4 months, technically. I was on the road for 116 days. And I'm still so incredibly glad that I did it, but I've got like 75,000 words that I wrote in journals while I was on the road, and reading through them for a significant portion of the time that I was on the road, I was fucking miserable. It was not like, it's not like go west adventure all the time. It was, there was a lot of shit going on in here that was bad. It was physically demanding, and I wasn't really prepared for it. However, that's not
so as you got there, you said, all right, well, I'm going to continue, right? And so you get in your van, right? And you're like, well, none of that stuff disappeared. You still had stuff going on in your, some things about, well, I've been saying, and am I letting people down? You're still pushing on. You're heading to a story. You're going to.
Yeah. And I tell you what, though, one of the states I was supposed to cross border to border was Kansas. And in the middle of Kansas, I found an exit off the highway and pulled off to be on one of the roads that I might ride on. And I got out, and at that moment, I knew I had made the right decision, because the thing about a recumbent trike is you're lower to the asphalt, and the radiant heat coming off the road in Kansas in the middle of summer, I was like, I would have been fried in my own juices. I was like, I'm so glad I just didn't do this middle bit.
No, look, there's a point of suffering to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And then at some point in time, you're like, if I'm putting myself into boiling earth and the pavement is actually wet from heat, from the melting asphalt, fuck this.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's something I hadn't even considered until that moment. Because when you're on an upright bike, you don't get that because you're up here, the road's down there. But my butt is like 7 inches off the asphalt on a recumbent trike. It was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, I was in Astoria, and I spent the next 2 months with the ocean off my right shoulder, and that was so much better. That was the best part of the trip.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get there. You know, so you drive out there. You get Oregon. You drop your rental car off, and then now it's back on the bike again, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I spent Oregon, the coastal. There's a couple of things about Oregon. It's like the further north in California you get, the more like Oregon it becomes. Like Southern California is very sort of palm tree. Northern California is very sort of rugged, and you get sea stacks and everything. And Oregon on the coast to me is like Middle Earth. You know, it was, you know, biker.
Like, well, let's get there. Astoria, is that the place from the Goonies? Is that where the Goonies is filmed?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't I only spent a night there. Literally, I dropped off the car and spent a night in a motel and got up the next morning and pedaled away. Because I wanted to try to keep moving.
Yeah.
So I didn't spend a lot of time in the town there, but I think my next stop was Fort Stevens, big state beach park with a early 20th century shipwreck in the sand, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm camping by the ocean, you know, and it was just a completely different experience than like, you know, camping out in an RV park surrounded by like people whose idea of camping involves bringing like televisions and
yeah. Well, hey, you know, as we're in conversation, I wanted to tell you a funny story about this Goonies guy, right? So, who is the kid that's one of the Coreys? What's that guy's name? The one that's still alive?
I don't know. Is he the fat one?
Yeah, the guy that's it's Corey Feldman, and what's the other one?
The truffle guy.
No, it's Corey Feldman. It's the guy the one that the one that's you know, one of the Coreys, right? Yeah, the guy that was whatever the Goonie. I gotta say, so I have a friend of mine that you know, gets invited to this party in LA, and they said, you know, hey, we're going to this house, and she's like, where are we going? Let's say, like, the guy won't, you know, like, we know this girl, and this party is this huge mansion, you know, like massive gates everywhere, and they go in and security and stuff, and it's Corey Feldman's house, right? And there's only like maybe 20 people there, and so like, you know, my friends go in and they go like a shrine to all the Goonies stuff, and he's like so proud of it, you know? And it's and it was kind of like awesome but sad because he's like so proud of this thing, and then like the girls are really hot and like LA girls, and they don't give a shit. They're so bored. They're like, whatever. And he's all like pouring his heart out about how this like really meant so much to him. And it just goes to show, like, you know, anyway, man, it's like every time I think of a story now, I think of that stupid story. Okay. So now you're in Fort Stevens, you're heading down Route 1, and you're rolling down.
Basically hugging the coast. Oregon, I only did 2 states border to border. Virginia was the first one, and Oregon was the other one. I got halfway through Kentucky and not all the way down to, so I saw all the Oregon coast. And, you know, it's basically, you know, it's like Pacific Northwest. There's ocean, there's a little bit of rainforest, there's redwoods, there's amazing biker sites that are like, it was $3 a night when I was there. And they had like, you know, solar showers, and just really, they're really proud of their state camping system up in Oregon, and they should be, because it's brilliant. It was just lovely.
Yeah.
There, you know, you could pitch your tent in the center of the circle of this grove of redwoods, and like if you stepped up on your toes, like the ocean was right over there through the underbrush. It was just amazing. Wow. And it was such a radical change from the East Coast that it's kind of hard to describe. But instantly, like if I'm reading through the journals, instantly the character of my thinking changes. You know, like the first part of the journals is very much about suffering and despair, and as soon as I'm near the ocean, it just changes. There's more introspection, and I'm just a lot happier. So if I had stuck to my guns or given up, I wouldn't have had that experience, you know? So it was good to change the plans. We've locked up here, I think. Oh, no.
Are with us. Ian, you there?
Yes, I am.
Hello? There you are.
I can hear you now, but I think it's time to...
All right, man. No worries.
There we go.
Go ahead, buddy. So anyway,
you see my hands?
We're in...
All right, let's
try.
All right.
There you are.
Yep.
People want to see you, not mine. Okay, cool. All right. Can you hear me?
I can.
Hang on.
Probably about 30 seconds after you actually speak, though. I'll wait for it.
Oh, it's super delayed here. Let's see.
I don't think. Oh, hang on a sec. All right.
Try this. Hang on, buddy. We are going to get Ian back online here in 1 second. Okay.
Right.
We'll get him back and then back in. Are you there?
I am.
There you are. All right, cool.
Can you tell? Can you tell that I'm here?
Dude, I can see you. I can see your face. I can see. Oh shit! Hang on. Let's try this again. Let's get him on. Again, we apologize for this, and by we, I mean me, the entire here was pause, keep pausing. Okay, we'll get him back. Every once in a while, you just need to do a kind of a hard restart. And, you know, we're still working out. This is the inaugural broadcast here. So hang on. And, you know, as my my staff is, you know, I lost them in the poker match. By poker, I meant dice match in the alley. They lost. I lost them to some unfortunate misanthropes. So since that happened, I'm by myself here, so I have to invite Ian back in, get him back into the broadcast, so we can talk about all the fun shit as he made his way down the coast. So Let me see here. All right. We should have some music or some maybe we could have some like Kenny G playing in the background while this thing rolls. So one thing about also too is that this takes a lot of memory on the computer to do this kind of stuff. So we're recording, we're trying to talk to each other, and you had all this great stuff here. Unfortunately, it tends to have little issues like this. So, all right. Let's try this again. All right, let's call him on the phone. Let's see if this works. You know how that works sometimes. Maybe call each other on the phone, technology that already works already, and then that's better. Riveting TV, I tell you. Riveting. Excitement. Hey, brother. More time. What happens when you try to join? Oh, you fuckers. All right, let's see. Let's try it again. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a link. Let's see. Send you a link. Oh, you know what it is? Maybe it's because, and that means, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hang up. I'm going to create. Yeah, because I think what it is like, you know, instead of like just resetting you, is that I ejected you, which means probably you're banned. I think I just banned my guest from my own podcast, which is the fucking worst podcast ever. And by the way, this is still live, and this is awesome. All right, all right. Fuck. All right, let's. Do you have another email address I could send this to? Okay, Ian at rightbastard.com. Okay. Oh, there you are. Okay, I'm going to invite you there. Let's see. Hopefully, I banned my own guests from my podcast. This is fantastic. See, Ian, this is why I am not a rich man and I don't have a staff taking care of this stuff, because I do stupid shit like this. You fucker. Yeah. I did not read the writer at all. Ian just said that he found the brown M&Ms in the green room. Folks at home watching this live broadcast, which, hey, by the way, just in case you're wondering, Ian, you know how many viewers we have? 0. That would be none. None people are watching this live. Well, we didn't actually advertise it. We're just trying to do a dry run for fucking obvious reasons. What? Oh, shit. Okay, hold on a second. All right. I mean, is there another one that I can send it to? Okay, hold on. So let me just fix this. So I'm going to go in here and, damn it, dude. I am sorry. I screwed this up. So you guys are not going to believe that I just banned my guest. Like, I thought what I was doing was just removing you from the call and then you could come back in. I was removing you from Google. Actually, you're kicked out of Google now. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Is there? there's no way I can, like, I'm looking for my band list and there's no band list. All right, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this broadcast, right?